Budgets. I know it's that time of year. Budgets are starting to come in. You need to submit them so they can go through your boards, all that kind of stuff. I find them kind of exciting just because I know that they're huge strategically, but I know that for most people, they're not the most exciting thing. They're kind of a drudge to go through. Well, I want to give you a list of some things that you should be looking at for your budget in terms of 2023. What's going to make the most impact? What's the biggest ROI is going to be? But I want to give you one warning, and that is, as a church, do not look at the current economic situation, whether that's in your country or globally, as something that should cause you to shrink away on your budgets. For starters, yeah, there's an inflation, so you actually should increase your budget to handle a lot of those things. In fact, you probably should expect slowdowns and other issues from supply chains, and you should expect inflationary issues even throughout 2023. However, as a church, there's also this thing where as there's upheaval, as there's uncertainty, these are times where the church really stands out and offers answers into the culture. For me, some of the biggest wins in ministry came during big times of uncertainty and upheaval, like 2001, after the Twin Towers, or in 2008, after that bubble burst. So these are things and times where you actually should be ready to double down. Don't shrink away, double down at this point. I know that's easier said than done, but that's what you're going to want to do. Now, when it comes to our investment strategy, and again, this is an investment strategy. We want to get a return on the money that we spend in discipleship. So what we're going to try to spend on is things that increase disciples or grow our disciples in both quality and quantity. So first things first, the heart of any church technology system these days is still the church management system. So the church management system, if you don't have one, or if you have not optimized yours or spent on it, or if you don't have enough capacity in yours, it's time to spend on that. Make sure that you are going to be able to do all the automation, all the things that you need to do within that church management system. Because that's the one that's going to tell you, are my people dropping out? Are they following along on a discipleship track? It's also how you're going to be welcoming newcomers and things like that. So invest in that. That's an important part of your church's technology system. Next up, video messaging. I know I've said this before. I'm going to keep saying it. I don't know why churches don't use video messaging more often. It just is such a huge impact when you do use it, because you just have to whip out your phone. You've got a task there. You click the task. You just shoot a quick video, say hi to the newcomer or whatever it is, or try and re-engage somebody that's dropped out of the church. People almost always open these things, and they're almost always, delighted by them when they get them. So they're cheap. They don't cost you very much, and they're a huge impact. So definitely spend on a video messaging platform, at least for the pastoral staff. Next up, systems integration. Now, I know this can be a bit vague, and sometimes people aren't sure what on earth they should actually integrate. Well, if we're using our previous two items, integrate your church management system with your video messaging system. When a newcomer is added to your church management system, the task for the video should show up on the pastor's phone so that they can just do a quick 20-second welcome to the church video. Simple as that. It's not a huge expenditure to make that happen, but it's something that you should budget for and make happen in 2023. And you may have other systems that need to be integrated together as well. Email messaging platforms, or you might even be using like customer management platforms to manage some of your online video or things like that, to kind of integrate everything. These are all things that you should go ahead and tie together so that you have a better idea of what's going on within your church, and that you're automating some of those processes that need to happen in your church. Next up, and this is one that I never have understood when I run into churches that do this, but have you ever noticed that when it comes to volunteers, people don't want to spend on volunteers? Now, the reality is, yeah, volunteers aren't paid, but that doesn't mean that they come free. So when you've got volunteers, you want to spend on those volunteers. And when it comes to IT, you should be spending on licensing for them to use technology systems. For example, Microsoft 365, for your church staff, you usually have enough donations. And if you don't have donations, yeah, you do have to purchase some discount licensing. Well, the discount licensing is also valid for volunteers. Donation licensing is never valid for volunteers, except for a couple of very edge cases. And you'd have to talk to myself or another tech for social impact expert to find out more. But discount licensing can be used for any volunteer. So if you purchase each volunteer discount license, say Microsoft 365 frontline licensing, which is fantastic for volunteers, that's going to help them with a lot of the work that they need to do. You can tie them in with your team's channels and they can collaborate and work with you. Absolutely, you should be investing in that so that you can work better with your volunteers. If you're setting aside even $20 a month in your ministry, just so that you can work a lot easier and a lot better with your key volunteers, why wouldn't you do that? That's just insane not to do it. So definitely look at and budget for and spend on getting the technology that it takes for you to work together with your volunteers. Finally, we've got outsourcing, and this is going to be especially important going into 2023. I did say, yes, you should go ahead and double down. You should be doing your expenditures and you should not shrink away on your budget for 2023. However, when it comes to ROI, a lot of the times outsourcing outpaces an in-house staff for something by an order of magnitude. Like if you've got 10 staff, 12 staff, 15 staff, oftentimes it won't make sense for you to have a full-time IT person or a full-time graphic designer or a full-time accountant or bookkeeper or a full-time media and videographer or somebody that writes copy. Probably makes no sense for you to have full-time somebody like that. In fact, it may not even make sense for you to do it at 50 staff or 7. It starts to make more sense with some of these roles at like 75 to 100 staff. It's that big of a difference if you actually sit down and do the calculations. For IT, it's almost impossible. Like if somebody were to hire my company, it's almost impossible for a church to actually get a better ROI on an in-house staff until they hit at least 50 staff. So at that point, you're talking about probably a 5,000 person church, give or take. I mean, you may be less, you may be like 4,000, but still, that's a really big church before it would make any sense. And the average church is about 100 people. A large church can be up to like 300 to a few thousand. The majority of churches, it just doesn't make any sense for you guys to hire in-house. So if somebody from in-house decides that they want to leave or go, now's a good time to, instead of replacing them, to go ahead and contract an outsourced provider. So outsourced graphic design, outsourced, even your social media management, all that stuff can be handled via outsourcing with organizations, businesses that specialize in providing these services to churches. So I'd highly recommend you look at that. All right, so those are my big tips on 2023 and handling your budget. With that being said, happy budgeting, and I look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Okay, now tell everybody to like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.